Here is a quick recap video of the facts of everything in your world that you know was pretty much shaped by the year 1972. And I'm going to lay out those facts for you, and you can research them on your own, but right now you're going to listen to them coming from Google itself. Why 1972 was the longest year in history?
The authorities that oversaw the Coordinated Universal Time, a regulatory agency created by a consortium of nations, determined that an adjustment was needed to time that year, to better align the seasons, and so added 2 seconds to the world's clocks, thus making 1972 unmatched in length.
1972 solar flare.
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. The solar storms of August 1972 were a historically powerful series of solar storms with intense to extreme solar flare, solar particle event, and geomagnetic storm components in early August 1972.
1972 solar eclipse.
According to Wikipedia, a total solar eclipse occurred on July 10, 1972.
When was the last time man walked on the moon?
This was accomplished with 2 U.S. pilot astronauts flying a lunar module on each of 6 NASA missions across a 41-month period starting the 20th of July 1969, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on Apollo 11, and ending on the 14th of December 1972 with Gene Cernan and Jack Schmitt on Apollo 17.
1972 SALT Treaty.
Nixon and Soviet General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev signed the ABM Treaty and Interim SALT Agreement on May 26, 1972, in Moscow.
1972 US dollar no longer backed by gold.
Nixon directed Treasury Secretary Connally to suspend, with certain exceptions, the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, ordering the gold window to be closed such that foreign governments could no longer exchange their dollars for gold.
That act actually went through in 1971, but you could still find US dollars then in 1971 that were backed by gold, but in the year 1972 there were no dollars whatsoever that were backed by gold. So 1972 was the year that there actually was no more dollars backed by gold. What is CERN?
The European Organization for Nuclear Research, known as CERN, is a European research organization that operates the largest particle physics laboratory in the world.
Where is the largest machine in the world?
According to Pocket Lint, the Large Hadron Collider is said to be the largest machine in the world. It's the biggest and most powerful particle collider ever built. It inhabits a tunnel that's 17 miles long, beneath the France-Switzerland border.
When was France and Switzerland's CERN contract signed? Okay, so it's not going to actually say that, but that was actually signed in 1972. Land contract for CERN, that was Switzerland and France. Now, really briefly, real quickly, the reason why that contract went through is because the existing Hadron Collider that they had built by CERN that was a lot smaller, that wouldn't have gave us the God particle is what they were looking for, actually had a 1,000 times spike in power that same year in 1972, and that's what helped push CERN to get their Hadron Collider created. When was the discovery of black hole entropy?
1972. According to Scientific American blogs, Ender Bekenstein in his seminal 1972 paper, which demonstrated that the entropy of a black hole is exactly proportional to the size of the event horizon around it. He also proved that there is a maximum amount of information that can be stored in a finite region of space, a concept now known as the Bekenstein bound.
CERN also has claimed that they can create black holes on Earth. Microsoft, 1972.
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. Bill Gates and Paul Allen sought to make a business utilizing their shared skills in computer programming. In 1972, they founded Trafo Data, which sold a rudimentary computer to track and analyze automobile traffic data.
So it's not going to tell you, but Trafo Data, the program that Bill Gates created in 1972, became Microsoft. DARPA, 1972.
The agency was renamed the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in 1972, and during the early 1970s, it emphasized direct energy programs, information processing, and tactical technologies. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency is an agency of the United States Department of Defense responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military.
Pong, 1972.
According to Wikipedia, Pong is a table tennis sports game featuring simple two-dimensional graphics, manufactured by Atari and originally released in 1972.
What was the first in-home game system?
In 1972, Magnavox released the Magnavox Odyssey, the first home video game console which could be connected to a TV set.
1972 United States abortions.
There were 667 reported deaths during 1972 to 87, of which 240 were due to legally induced abortion, 88 due to illegal abortions, and 172 due to spontaneous abortions.
And, of course, when did they make abortion illegal? Legal in the United States was the very next year, which was in 1970. What year was the Clean Water Act?
The date of first publication of Clean Water Act was October 18, 1972.
1972 Marine and Land Animal Protection Laws.
The MMPA prohibits, with certain exceptions, the take of marine mammals in U.S. waters and by U.S. citizens on the high seas, and the importation of marine mammals and marine mammal products into the U.S.
What was the only undefeated football team in history?
1972 Dolphins. The 1972 Dolphins went 14-0 in the regular season and won all 3 postseason games. The team remains the only NFL team to complete an entire season undefeated and untied from the opening game through the Super Bowl.
1972 Equal Women's Rights.
On March 22, 1972, the Senate passed the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution, which proposed banning discrimination based on sex.
When was the last time there was a full picture of Earth taken?
December 7, 1972. Here's a summary from Wikipedia. The blue marble is an image of Earth taken on December 7, 1972, from a distance of about 29,000 kilometers.
Alcor, 1972.
The Alcor Life Extension Foundation, most often referred to as Alcor, is an American nonprofit organization based in Scottsdale, Arizona, United States.
When was Alcor founded?
1972.
I do have another video that I want to put together between 1972 and 2020 link. There are so many links right now that even more than what I put there. I do want to say that my prediction with Donald Trump, who is very much just like Richard Nixon, it's going to repeat the same thing as 1972's election with Richard Nixon winning in a landslide. Donald Trump or Richard Nixon in 2020 is going to be going against that Hubert Humphrey Vice President Joe Biden, which is pretty much the same guy. And this time it's going to be reversed. It's going to be the opposite. Joe Biden, when you look at the way things are happening with 2020, 1972, because they're completely polar opposite of one another in those years, it will say that the numbers say that Joe Biden will win in a landslide over Donald Trump, the way that Richard Nixon won in a landslide over McGovern. However, it shouldn't have been McGovern in the seat. It should have been Hubert Humphrey, which would have been the vice president. And you can look all that up on my 1972 and 2020 links. Another link that you can see right now in this video that you're looking at, the spontaneous abortions were 172. And then if you look up until this day right now, how many people are actually in Alcor that have been frozen? 172. So 1972 is when Alcor was created. And in 1972, there was 172 spontaneous abortions, if you don't know what that is.
The spontaneous loss of a woman's pregnancy before the 20th week that can be both physically and emotionally painful.
So in 1972, there was 172 spontaneous abortions. In other words, women who just, boom, lost 100. There was 172 babies that were lost. And up until 2020, there is now 172 people in Alcor pods. And that, I believe, is the magic number. As of today, it came to me in clarity that, you know, that's how many thinkers that there probably are in the pods, is 172. That's what it is. That's the end cutoff number. You know, 172 wiped out babies in 1972, and in 2020 up to 2020 is 172. And I'm going to be calling Alcor myself, and I'm going to confirm that number of 172 on video. So I will be posting that as well. Also, if you look at the a couple of links that you can look at from 1972, just in 1972, the things that are linked together. If you look at DARPA, the guy who created the internet, who worked for DARPA, his name was Higginbotham, and in CERN, the Higgs boson particle is what gave you the God particle. Okay, so Higgs, Higgins, Higginbotham, Higgs. You know, these names are so close in 1972. You know, DARPA and CERN. The other one is the first video game that was created. Well, what is simulated reality without video games? It is nothing. It does not exist. It can only exist after video games were created. Video games were the caveman, were the beginning of simulated reality, and that started in 1972 by a man named Alan Alcorn. And also in 1972, Alcor was created, which was where you get the pods where they're freezing people and stuff, which is not a bad thing. It's something that you'd figure most everybody would do. The Clean Water Act went through in 1972. So did the protection of marine animals in 1972, and so did the undefeated football team Dolphins. Water, protect the animals, undefeated football team Dolphins. I know that seems kind of absurd, but you know what? There's so many interweaving and so many links with all this stuff in 1972 that it's overwhelmingly evidence that it cannot just be a one or two coincidence, a one or two one-off thing. Everything ties together. So I hope that out of the 172 people that some of you are, or at least one of you are one of those 172 people that are in those pods that are sharing, that is in one of those pods with me, and that you are listening to this message, and that that this message gets out to you, and that you get to hear this message clearly, and that you can understand it, and maybe somebody else like one of you can help me piece more of this puzzle together. For the rest of you that are NPCs in this matrix, I don't hate you. I literally, you are part of this thing, and the matrix is not a bad thing. I don't believe. Of course, there's going to be trials and tribulations in it, because without it, just like the man said in the Matrix, Agent Smith, we tried to give you a perfect world in the first Matrix, and as human beings, you rejected it.
Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world, where none suffered, where everyone would be happy? It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world, but I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. So the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from, which is why the Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization.
Because it did not compute. So we do have to have these problems. We have to have these trials and tribulations. It just so happens that probably every once in a while in the Matrix, somebody like myself finds the glitch. And that glitch is 1972. And I believe that this 2020 is being the end of this Matrix. We'll have to see, because let's say 2021 rolls around, we'll have to see if we get there.
Broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.